Welcome to a new episode of the Staight Wrestling Voices of the Indies podcast. I'm your host Morbo, and with me, as always, everyone's favorite US independent wrestling fan, Sebastian.
Thank you as always for the introduction, Morbo, and welcome to this week's episode of Staight Wrestling Voices of the Indies. And our guest today is what you can call a rising star in the independent wrestling scene of the United States, especially in the Southeast and also in the Midwest. He has been a finalist of the Action Future Showcase tournament in 2024. He just recently had his debut for GCW and competed for the TWE Championship. We are really happy to have him as our guest today, Anakin Murphy. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So Anakin, for the people who don't know who you are, who is Anakin Murphy?
Anakin Murphy is an emo kid who wants to die. Basically, that's pretty much it. It's very cut and dry.
Can you tell us how you got into wrestling both as a fan and also as a wrestler?
As a fan, my dad was always into it, and I think just one day, like on a Friday for SmackDown, I was like, "Oh, hey, what's this?" And I was like 7 or 8 years old, and then ever since then, it was like what I wanted to do. And then, like, as a wrestler, I was able to find a wrestling school in St. Louis whenever I was 16. So whenever I found that, it was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna go do this now.
As you mentioned, you are from St. Louis. What can you tell us about the local wrestling scene in your home area?
It's oversaturated. There is way too many wrestling promotions in St. Louis. I believe that you should spend your money on 3 of those promotions. But I kind of represent St. Louis Anarchy as like I consider that like my home promotion. So yeah, like overall, like there's a lot of wrestling in St. Louis. I think it's to a point where it's very overwhelming, but like Pro Wrestling Epic, St. Louis Anarchy, and Glory Pro are like the best ones.
One of your trainers and also your partner as a part of Unsigned Don't Care is Gary J. Would you describe him? Would you describe him as a mentor? And are there other people that have played a similar role in your career?
Yeah, like Gary, I credit a lot of things to Gary, but also like I've had another wrestler named Zach Sawyers who was just as instrumental as Gary J was in terms of like helping me and mentoring me and like molding me into the wrestler that I am. So like both Gary and Zach are like, I consider them both like my trainers and my mentors.
How does the positioning of the St. Louis area between the Southeast and the Midwest influence your career? Would you call both the Southeast and the Midwest your home regions?
Oh yeah, I would definitely say so. Like I said, like St. Louis Anarchy is like my home, but like TWE is like my home away from home. Like there was a point this past year where I was like, you know what? I think I should move to Chattanooga, and I was like very close to moving there.
Can you tell us, where does your nickname Death Wish come from? Is there a story behind it, and who came up with it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a story. So like I was trying to like find, like every wrestler, like you try to find what fits for you. And I was in a stable with Matt Fitchett and Davey Vega, who were the besties in the world. We were a trio called Grindhouse. And Fitchett wanted everyone to have like 2-syllable nicknames. So he was Gunslinger, Vega was Spitfire, and then he pitched for me to be Death Wish. And then I took the Death Wish name and kind of spun it into like, oh, okay, my whole character arc is that I want to die. That's what I've been looking for.
You are not only a wrestler, but also the promoter of Tax Return Wrestling in 2024. What are the similarities, but also the differences between being a wrestler and a promoter? And also, are there things that you learned as a promoter that help you now as a wrestler?
So Tax Return Wrestling is like kind of a big joke. Like it's not like a very serious promotion. Like there's only like 2 shows a year, if that. Like we did 2 shows in 2024 and didn't do any in 2025. So like, I guess the difference is like you're a lot more responsible as a promoter, and I feel like that kind of showed me some things to learn as a wrestler to be like more understanding of certain things. So even though it was like a joke to do it, it kind of did teach me a lot.
You had your first match that is listed on cagematch.net on July 28th of 2019 against Johnny Kincaid and Jack as a part of 01 USA fighting for Amy. What are your memories of this first match?
So that was actually my second match. Cage Match doesn't have my first match. My first match was June 22nd, 2019, and it was a singles match against Roy Lewis. And that match was terrible, all on my end, because I just kind of wasn't ready for like a singles match yet. I don't think, and yeah, it just did not go very well. But that triple threat was a lot better because that was my second match ever. So that triple threat was like way better than that match against Roy.
I also have to say that maybe it was like added in the meantime, because now that I look, I also find that match as a first. But when I first did the research, the one that I mentioned was the first match. But speaking of Pro Wrestling 01 as a promotion where you have been active, especially in the start of your career, how would you describe the promotion Pro Wrestling 01 USA to the people who haven't heard about it before?
So 01 USA is a promotion in Illinois. I believe it has a lot of like rich history, especially like in Illinois. It is 100% like the one place that gave me like a chance. Like, hey, we actually like think you're really good and believe in you. We're gonna like continue to use you. I'm not there as often anymore, but 01 is always a place that I'm going to go to. So if my stamp of approval means anything, like it's going to be on 01.
After having more and more matches for 01 and other promotions in Illinois and Indiana, you had like a 2021 where I feel like a lot of things like started for you. And if we also look at Cage Match in 2021, you had 70 matches, including debuts for Paradigm Pro or the promotion you already mentioned, St. Louis Anarchy. Would you say that 2021 was like the start of things to come for you?
No, I think 2022 was because 2021
Okay.
I was still like getting, I guess my feet wet with certain things. Like I was starting to really like travel around, but I didn't feel like I really hit like a stride. Like 2022, as of right now, I still consider that like my best year. Like that I did so much that year and I learned so much. Um, So I think it really, again, I think it like became apparent to me that 2022. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm doing something cool. Like I think 2025 was the year that I feel like I broke out the most, especially with death matches, where I became like known in a lot of people's eyes. But it was kind of like a tumultuous year professionally and personally. So I don't know if that was my best year, but I definitely think it was like the one where I broke out the most.
You say that maybe also the pandemic had an influence on maybe also like that you got your real start in your mind in 2022? Because we have to say you started out in 2019, relatively short before the pandemic. And how hard was it for you to be starting out and having the pandemic happen immediately afterwards, basically?
It was definitely like it wasn't like I guess it did like really suck because then it seemed like I was starting over whenever shows were coming back. It was like, okay, I'm gonna redo my first match pretty much. So and also like the wrestling landscape before COVID was, in my opinion, entirely different than what it was afterwards. So yeah, it was a little tough.
Once again, I want to talk about the promotion we've already mentioned with St. Louis Anarchy, because from what you've said, you can already think that. And I'd like to ask that. Would you say that over the years that St. Louis Anarchy became, besides 01, one of your like early home promotions, so to speak?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like Anarchy is where I feel like the most at home. It's like the most like comfortable. It's a weird feeling that I can't super explain. It's like it's like, what your childhood home is, like whenever you're a kid, like, like you can pass it on the road and get like a flutter of memories, and like that's how I feel about Anarchy.
Speaking of home promotions, in 2022 you had your first matches for TWE Chattanooga, and in the second match you already challenged for the TWE tag team titles alongside Nick King. Can you recall this match, and would you say that this was maybe like kind of a small door opener or start of things to come for you in TWE?
Yeah, I mean, that match, from what I remember from it, was really fun. And I always remember like wanting to be at TWE more often, but not really knowing how to make it happen at that time. But I do think that match kind of showed people within TWE that like I have like what's the word? I guess I have like purpose and like potential. Potential is the word. Potential's I think what they saw in me after that match. So it became, it took some time, but like in a couple months, I became like a regular very quickly.
Yeah, and when we talk about promotions where you became a regular, I would like to talk about another debut in 2022, because you would debut for Unsanctioned Pro. And before we dive deeper into your accomplishments there, I would like to know, what can you tell our listeners who don't know about the promotion yet about Unsanctioned Pro? How would you describe the promotion? What makes it special?
Legit, like what makes it special is the fan base that Unsanctioned has. Like those shows are wild in a really good way, and I think it's because of the fan base that they have. Like I also have never been around an independent promotion for like a consistent amount of time where they sell out every single like venue, and it's like it is a sellout. Like they said, okay, we can't sell any more tickets, and that happened like all 12 shows of this past year for them. So that tells you anything. Like people definitely believe in it.
And maybe one question also regarding that, given that you've also like explained your character and how in TWE that people saw that you have a purpose, would you say that you are also a wrestler who really likes to interact with the crowd, and where the crowd also has like a positive influence on the way that you portray your character, or on your energy, or so to speak, that we would say, okay, if we have the fan base like an Unsanctioned Pro, it really like, so to speak, gets me to the next level?
Uh, yeah, I think I really do love like interacting with the crowd. Like even though like the whole shtick is I want to die, and I don't want people to like take that a certain way or be like, well, I want to die too. Like I'm lucky as in people just kind of call me like the twink, and they like how I look, and they like the theme song. So I've gotten very, very lucky with that. And I don't know what it is about me, but like people, like fan bases take to me very well. And I'm like super appreciative and fortunate for that.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree that the theme song definitely plays a role, and also like your whole presentation. And you also started to have success in Unsanctioned Pro. You became a 2-time tag team champion. The first one was alongside Victor Analog in 2023 and 2024, and the second one alongside Gary J in 2025. How would you compare those two title runs, and how important were they for your career, in your opinion?
Um, I think the title runs were like the same, really, but also like very different because it's with two different people. Um, Unsanctioned we kind of won them whenever Unsanctioned was still building their tag division both times. So it was kind of like in and out in terms of like how many tag matches we were really having. I think Gary and I had like 2 defenses. We kept it for like I think over 200 days. But I think Unsanctioned is doing a lot better with like a tag division now.
Would you maybe even say that when you talk about them doing better now, that maybe also your run, or you and Gary J being there, was maybe also the initial to that? So like the starting point, that maybe even your run had like a further impact beyond yourself?
Yeah, it could be. It could be. I also feel like the production, Derek Dillinger and Katie Arquette, were also like a big catalyst for it because they, in my opinion, are the best tag team that Unsanctioned Pro has.
Yeah, and this wouldn't be your last title in Unsanctioned Pro, as you won the Unsanctioned Pro Hardcore Championship. in 2025. And how different and special is it for you to hold such a title that is especially representing like the hardcore division of a promotion?
I loved it, especially like how I won it, because I was in the Hardcore Cup tournament, and it was for the belt. So going through a whole tournament and then coming out on top with it was really special. And I think also like the whole build to it, like for the unsanctioned shows, was also really cool. And I had a lot of like leeway in like what I could do with like promos and things like that. So yeah, it was really fun, really special. Probably like the most special moment I've had in unsanctioned was like winning the tournament and the title in the same night.
Would you say that hardcore wrestling is something you always wanted to do, or you wanted to do pretty early on when you started doing wrestling, or is it something that like grew on you, or that you grew into basically?
It's definitely something that grew into me. I was always a fan of hardcore and death matches, but I never really wanted to do them because I was like scared to do them. But as I got booked for ICW and like bled for the first time, it was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then like it just ramped up and ramped up and ramped up, and here we are now with scars on my back and people knowing me as like the deathmatch twink. So it's definitely something that grew on me.
This is actually a great bridge to my next question, because this is what I wanted to ask. Mentioning ICW, no holds barred, you started to compete for them in 2023. And maybe first of all, like, how would you describe ICW, NHB, and maybe also your experiences you made there?
I love ICW. Um, I feel like every match I've had there has been some of my favorite matches. I think like me and Gary have had a lot of matches against each other, but I think our match in the pit, um, like in my debut, was the best match that we've ever had together. I do think my match against Danny DeMonto, like the death match that we had this past year, is the best death match I've ever had. And I just love like the atmosphere that ICW has like created with the fan base and locker room.
Speaking of the atmosphere, if you now see like deathmatch wrestling or hardcore wrestling compared to like regular matches, how different are those matches, deathmatch hardcore, compared to regular matches? Is there a different kind of preparation, or how is it different from each other? Maybe also similar.
I think they're entirely different because you kind of have to like follow a different path in terms of the structure of it and like different story elements you want to do. And there's a lot of mental preparation because like for normal matches, you probably have to mentally prepare for like taking a big bump that might suck. And then in death matches, it's like, well, you're gonna have to mentally prepare for taking this light tube that's gonna suck. So it's two very different preparations mentally.
And it's very interesting to hear, because I oftentimes feel like that people can't really like comprehend, that are not in wrestling, how different that is and what a different mindset you have to have. So that's a very interesting answer. But in 2024, we had another very important year for your career, where you were a part of the Scenic City Invitational Weekend, and you even reached the final of the Actual Future Showcase. You were also a part of like the weekend as a whole, like the SCI weekend being a very important weekend in American independent wrestling. Would you describe that or would you describe that as a milestone of your career?
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like the SCI is, as of right now, like the biggest and best tournament in independent wrestling. I don't think there's any tournament that really, like any non-deathmatch tournament, that really compares to the SCI. So I've always wanted to be a part of the tournament and the future showcase. So uh, doing the future showcase and making it to the finals, and then wrestling again I got a non-tournament match later that day, um, was really special to me. And then being a part of the tournament this year is going to be very special to me.
Would you say that maybe also the final itself was special for you? Because, as you know, I was in the audience, and I still feel like there was a very like special energy because you had these three like wrestlers who are very much like bonded to TWE and like part of the identity, and so it was like very special to have these three TWE people, so to speak, in the final. Would you agree with that? And was it like a special energy?
Yeah, 100% was, especially with like Jameson winning, because Jameson like legitimately is one of my best friends. So it was a special energy, and it was also just a special moment to be a part of his victory.
I would absolutely agree. This is still one of the matches I think about quite often when I think about this weekend. And we've already talked like about the timeline of your career, so to speak. But when we speak about your career, I would also like to talk about how it almost ended last year and or was at least in danger. And you don't have to get into detail about it, but would you say that this scare, so to speak, changed the way that you see your career, or did it change like your mindset?
Um, I think it definitely changed my mindset, because I did blow out my knee, and I can get detailed. Like the knee blowout wasn't like, okay, things need to stop. It was like after, like I was so burnt out and so like not into it mentally, for wrestling, because like doing it consistently every week for 6 years like did that to me. And the knee blowout was like my sign of like, okay, maybe this needs to like not be a thing. And I feel like it changed my mindset because I had that time away from wrestling, so I had that time to like, because whenever I was away from wrestling, I did not consume anything. I didn't go on Twitter very much. I didn't like watch wrestling. I just experience other things. And I feel like it made me miss wrestling, and it made me kind of re fall in love with it again. And then changed my mindset of like, okay, I know if I need to take a break, it's okay to take a break. Yeah, I think it was just burnout. And I think like even though it sucked, it hurt. Um, I feel like me blowing out my knee and being gone for that time was like a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, maybe would you maybe also even say that this could be an example for other wrestlers that even when something like this happens, which is like very bad and career threatening, that you can still take the positives out of it at the end of the day?
Yeah, 100%. I also just feel like I train people now, like in St. Louis at a school, and I tell them all the time, like if you feel like you're burnt out and you feel like you're miserable with this, you need to take a break. No, like, no matter what, because wrestling is always going to be there, and it is supposed to be fun at the end of the day. So if it's not fun, you need to just step away for a while because you are still going to have things to come back to.
And when we speak about career ends, let us talk about a match you had pretty recently at the end of the last year on December 20th, 2025. You were a part of one of the last matches of Neil Diamond Cutter's career at Unsanctioned Pro. How did this feel to you?
I think it was very, very special to me because Neil is somebody who I consider like a mentor in terms of deathmatch wrestling. He's really helped me out with that a lot, and he gave me a lot of confidence within it. So with him retiring early this upcoming year, um, I felt very honored to kind of have like one of his last matches.
Yeah, and you had a lot to do in recent weeks or even days because 8 days ago, on the day of this recording, and I think we can talk about this, that originally we were planning to do this interview earlier on, but then you got a great opportunity because you appeared for GCW One Night Only 2026 alongside Lauren Cavazos in a match against Bang and Matthews in the Berwyn Eagles Club. The first thing I would like to know, because you already hinted at that being quite spontaneous, so I would like to know, how did that match like come about?
Uh, so I knew it was going to be so I was supposed to be at GCW in July for emo fight, and then I got hurt and I had to miss it. So I wanted to go to that Berwyn show because it was like an all deathmatch show. Or and I went there and was kind of helped out and talked to people. And I was talking to Brett about I think just like early 2000s wrestling. Like he was kind of like he was asking somebody like a young wrestler if they knew certain people within death matches, and I was also a part of it, and I just kept listing out people that I knew. And then at the end of it, he was like, "You have your gear?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, I'm gonna put you in this match." I'm like, "All right, cool." And that's kind of how it came about.
You already mentioned the history that you were supposed to appear for GCW when you got the injury. Would you say that this in mind also made your appearance not that long ago even more special because it felt like you could do what you couldn't do earlier on because of the injury?
I don't think it made it more special because I feel like the match at emo fight and the situation that it was in was like once in a lifetime. So I don't think anything is going to amount to that. Like I don't think I'm ever gonna get an opportunity like that again. And that's just kind of how life is. So I don't think anything will amount to like how special that was gonna be. But regardless, like still being there for GCW, which is I think a goal for almost every indie wrestler, um, was still really cool. And like being able to like go out there in front of a crowd that I love wrestling in front of in Chicago, um, it was still like it was still special.
And maybe would you say that also the venue made it special? Because if I speak for myself and Morbo as well, I feel like the Berwyn Eagles Club is like a pretty iconic venue in independent wrestling, given like its history with Shimmer and so on.
Yeah, I wrestled in the Berwyn Eagles Club about a handful of times, and it's always really cool because I always like wrestling in buildings that have a lot of history in it. So yeah, I love that for that aspect.
Before Morbo will talk to you about what is next for you on January 10th, we are recording this on January 11th, so it was yesterday. You challenged for the TWE Championship. You challenged Jameson Crook. What can you tell us about the match? And I would also like to know what can you tell us about what happened afterwards?
I felt the match was really good, especially on a stacked show like it was yesterday. I think we were put in like a tough position with the rest of the matches, but I think the match delivered. Um, and then afterwards, I decided to after I was put in the 2026 SCI tournament, I decided to kick Jaden Newman and his injured leg, and that ruffled a lot of people's feathers. So yeah, it is what it is, I guess.
Are there other promotions in your home region, the Midwest or Southeast, that you would like to be active for in the future?
No, honestly, I feel like in the Southeast, TWE and Action are the best. I would like to be at Action more often. Um, and in the Midwest, I feel like I've hit a lot of the goals that I've wanted to hit. I feel like the main promotion that I want to be at is like I want to be like a regular for GCW. And I feel like that's my big goal for this year.
And maybe down the lane, maybe promotions outside of the US are a possibility for you?
Yeah, I would love to. I've put off getting my passport for years, but I wanted to try to make that happen this year after Mania weekend, and hopefully making like a trip to Europe or like England or anywhere in the UK or Germany or things like that. And I could, Canada is not that. I mean, it's a far drive, but it isn't like that far in terms of where other countries are. So that's definitely something that I want to make happen probably next year, but I want to get the passport this year for it.
You have been wrestling now for over 6 years, and I would like to know, do you have any goals for the future in the long run? Is there something you want to have established in the next 7 years, for example? And did the situation last year where the end of your career could have been possible changed the perspective on such things?
Yeah, I want to answer the last question first. I think it did change a lot of perspective on things in terms of goals because realize that like my happiness is better than anything else, like money and like pretty much everything else in wrestling. So I have to look out for my happiness. I feel like goal wise, I would like to. I'm not married to signing a contract, but if I do, I would like it to be for one promotion. And if it happens, cool. If it doesn't, cool. In terms of other goals, like I would like to wrestle out of the country. I would like to wrestle in Japan. And I do have like deathmatch opponent goals that I have. So once I take off those things, I feel like I'll be satisfied with being done. Because I also don't want to have a long career. Like I'm not going to say it, but I have an age where I'm like, okay, once I hit this age, I'm done wrestling. Like I'll have my last year. So I feel like I'm on a little time crunch, but also I have a lot of time because I'm only 24. So I guess we'll just see what happens because like I'm a very big believer in like whatever happens happens. So I just want to be happy with whatever I do.
Any plans for an upcoming tax return wrestling show?
There's ideas for it, but nothing set in stone. But I have ideas. I just kind of haven't like made anything into fruition. I kind of wanted to wait after Mania weekend and then see if I actually wanted to like pursue it.
On March the 6th, you will be part of Jameson's show Good For You Too. What are your thoughts going into this show?
I'm excited because I love Jameson's shows. My match has not been announced yet, but it will be a death match, so that'll be cool.
And you already mentioned Mania weekend. Can we expect you at the weekend? Will you be there?
Yeah, I will be there.
Okay, cool. Okay, Anakin, that's it. We're at the end of the interview. And as always, the stage is yours. You can plug and promote anything you want.
If you search up Anakin Murphy on anywhere but TikTok, I'll pop up. And I also have a pro wrestling tea store where if you search up Anakin Murphy, I am bound to pop up.
Okay, Anakin, thank you very much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure to have you. Last week when I watched GCW One Night Only and your music hit, I was like, I know this guy. And then you came out and I was so happy. I was so happy to see you. For me, you're like one of the biggest talents in all of independent wrestling. And I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you, dude. I really appreciate that.
I absolutely agree with Morbo. Thank you, of course, to you, Morbo, and of course to you, Florian, but especially to you, Anakin, because you were someone we wanted to have on the show pretty much from the beginning. So we are really happy to make it happen. And with that, we wish you all the best for your career. And of course, a big thank you to everyone who's listening to us. And I hope you will listen to us in the future again. Goodbye.